basic research models in this totally different world a decade out?
I think it's a wonderful question and very difficult to answer. I think, first of all, you said it correctly. You said models, because I think we're going to see a proliferation of worthwhile models, that there are going to be more kinds of models than we're used to. And I think the drivers of those models are going to be somewhat different from the ones we're used to. The idea of the individual investigator coming up with hypothesis and testing will continue to be incredibly important for much of biological research. But for some of the applications that we're talking about, first of all, it's obviously going to be multiple centers, et cetera, but some of it is going to come from, in fact, the participant community. Clearly the case in rare diseases, we're seeing that already, where people aggregate individuals and families with rare conditions and basically go to researchers and say, here's some research that you can do now. We're going to enable you to do that. But we want to be more than passive. You know, we're not just going to put out our arms and let you draw blood. We'd like to be involved in deciding what are the research priorities, how information is going to be used, what's going to happen if drugs are developed based on this, who is going to have use of those drugs, at what cost, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's going to be much more of a partnership than it is now. I think clearly the first change in terms of genomics is really going to be the availability of sequencing. That one can think, you know, with the amount of time it takes to get a research project off the ground, the age of GWAS studies done the way we're doing them now is almost finished. Just started. It's almost finished because soon it will be complete sequencing. Already people are asking, well, gee, should I go to just complete exon sequencing anyway? I mean, how do I do it? Within a few years, when the price gets low enough, if it's $1,000, why waste time and money talking about, you know, let's just get all the information. But
For now, the police in central Russia continue to collect evidence following a gruesome discovery earlier this week of almost 250 fetuses dumped in a forest. They are thought to have been used in scientific research by a woman who worked at a local medical university before being fired last year. But as RT's Sean Thomas found out, some experts think the fetuses could even be the product of cloning.
Right now, the investigation is focused on two parts. First, how did these 4 plastic containers containing 248 fetuses end up in the woods about 70 kilometers north of Yekaterinburg? Why and where did these fetuses come from? The possible explanation is legal scientific research. We do know that all of the fetuses that are in question here were terminated between 22 and 26 weeks. This is well past the 12-week mark, which is considered legal abortion in Russia, and after 22 weeks, women can only have an abortion only for medical necessary reasons. So is this an illegal abortion operation or is this scientific research? No one really knows. They're trying to get to the bottom of that. We talked to one medical doctor. This is what they had to say about the subject.
This looks like some sort of thriller where organs were removed from fetuses to extract essences that theoretically can be used to rejuvenate people. There was a criminal case in Ukraine a while ago when women were deceived into terminating pregnancies quite late to extract tissue for rejuvenation purposes.
There is one woman who is in charge of some scientific research in the area. She was terminated in 2011. Police are looking to see if she had taken some of the material she was working with her when she left, and if this could possibly be that material. Now, there are some other disturbing theories saying that illegal scientific research could be behind this find as well. In fact, this is what one medical expert says on the subject.
It may sound a bit fantastical, but these fetuses could have been the product of cloning, despite its universal ban, and that's why they were thrown out like that, since these were not future human beings, but half human, half artificial creatures. It's a very daring theory. This might of course have been the product of miscarriages, but the fetuses could have been thrown out on purpose, to create scandal and attract attention, maybe attract attention to the ban on cloning humans, or to abortions, to shock people with the sight of these fetuses.
We've been tracking this story from the very beginning and following the developments, and the feedback that we're getting is that it touches at the very core of what people believe, and so it's a controversial story. It has shocked many people around the world, and of course we'll be continuing to follow developments online at RT and here on screen as well as they become available.
I want you to ask yourself something. Do you remember anything after being scanned by my bodyguard?
There's been a sixth-day violation.
How much does Gibson know? Who are you people? Open your eyes. Your family could get killed in the process.
We won't have to lose our best people. We will finally be able to conquer death. Your family is not really your family. They're his.
A human was cloned. That human was you. Kinda takes the fun out of being alive, doesn't it?
Tell me why I'm a threat.
The Supreme Court upheld the laws against human cloning.
Why kill me and not the clone?
You saw him, he didn't see you.
Daddy? We found him. They'll do anything to destroy the evidence. And you're the evidence.
He has a wife and kid, right?
What are you gonna do? Take my life back. He's not you, and you're not him.
I know who I am.
The sixth day.
Creating a baby in an artificial womb starts with classic IVF treatment, removing eggs from a woman's ovaries and fertilizing them in a laboratory. An embryo is formed. Instead of implanting this embryo inside the body, it's transferred to a lab-generated replica womb containing the all-important nutrients and chemicals needed for the fetus to grow. And so begins the development of the baby-to-be, immersed in a supply of synthetic amniotic fluid controlled by an artificial placenta. Two catheters linking the womb and placenta act as an umbilical cord. One provides the baby with oxygen and nourishment, the other removes waste products.
Will the Right Honourable Lady give a cast-iron guarantee that if this bill becomes law, no religious denomination, no place of worship, no clergyman or equivalent in other religions will be forced by legal action in the courts or the European community to carry out weddings without their wishes?
The Honourable Gentleman is preempting some later parts of my contribution, but I can say to him that we've taken very seriously all the points that he's raised about the need for protection, and he will see in some detail in the bill how we've put that into place. Of course.
I thank my right honourable friend. Is she aware of the letter written to honourable members by the Lord Carey of Clifton on the issue of equality between same-sex and different-sex individuals, where he says that the government has failed to address the important issues of consummation and adultery? While these concepts will continue to remain important aspects of heterosexual marriage, they will not apply to homosexual marriage. On the one hand, this does nothing to promote the ideal that marriage is both equal and should be a lifelong union.
My honourable friend will know, of course, that there's already no legal requirement for consummation, that our provisions will mean that adultery stays as it is, and that couples will have the opportunity to cite unreasonable behaviour, as many do already. And I think the issues that he raises are dealt with very well in that way. Perhaps, Mr. Speaker, I can make a little more progress. Because, as I say, there's no single view from religious organisations on this issue, and I know also that some colleagues in the House feel that they cannot agree with this bill for principled religious beliefs. And that is a stance that I entirely respect. If the Honourable Gentleman will give me a moment to make a bit more progress. I don't think it's the role of government to tell people what to believe, but I do think that Parliament and the State have a responsibility to treat people fairly. I'll give way to my honourable friend over there and then my honourable friend there.
I'm grateful for the Minister giving way. Will she take this early opportunity to confirm that those opponents of this bill, many hundreds of my constituents, are not homophobic, are not bigots, and are not barking.
They don't repent, just as these folks did. And you go through and look at all this thing, you know, a third of the